Still crammed into that apartment, my uncle let out a laugh. A week earlier, I'd done something none of them had any idea about. Then my cousin's fiancée spotted my watch, ran it through Google, and found out it cost more than her yearly salary. The table went cold. I'm 32. For most of my adult life, I've been the family disappointment. Not because I did anything wrong, because I didn't follow the plan, their plan. I skipped the safe corporate job my dad wanted me to apply for after college. Didn't marry young, didn't buy a house in the suburbs, didn't settle into what they call a real life. Instead, I moved into a tiny city apartment with creaky floors and paper-thin walls, and built a tech startup out of my living room. Nobody in my family understood it. Nobody tried to. For years, I was the punchline. The guy who plays with computers and eats instant ramen every night. The one who skipped Thanksgiving 3 years back because I was pitching investors. I never heard the end of that one. To them, I wasn't chasing a dream. I was dodging reality. Truth is, the apartment never really bothered me. Small, sure, but mine. I was so locked in on building something I believed in that I tuned out the digs at family gathering, mostly. My mom always opened with a forced smile and a strained, "So, still doing your little computer thing?" My sister Megan, married to a regional bank manager and never shy, would shake her head like I was a stray dog that refused to get trained. But the worst was Uncle Gary, my dad's older brother. Old school, money talk. Everything else is noise. Ran a construction business. Loved reminding people he built something with his own, unlike these soft millennials' screens. So when my cousin Tyler, Gary's golden buck, got engaged, I already knew the drill. Fancy dinner at some overpriced steakhouse. Stiff small talk, fake smiles. Tyler and I were never close. He'd followed the family script step for step. Business degree, job at the family firm, a leased car he couldn't really afford, the whole package. His fiancée Vanessa was some Instagram fitness influencer who talked in hashtags. I knew showing up meant sitting through the usual round of passive-aggressive jabs and smug looks from relatives who still figured I was living paycheck to paycheck. I went anyway, not to prove anything. At least that's what I told myself. Some part of me still hoped, maybe, this time would be different. My company had finally turned a real profit. I'd just closed a 6-figure licensing. Hadn't told the family, not to keep it quiet for effect. I just didn't think they'd care. Still, I figured, why not show up and see? Dinner was at some pretentious downtown place. Velvet booths, $28 salads. I got there on time. Dark blazer, slacks. Nothing flashy, just clean. I wore the one thing I'd splurged on when the deal closed. A Patek Philippe. Understated, elegant. The kind of piece nobody notices unless they know watch it. I figured nobody in my family would. I figured wrong. The second I walked in, Uncle Gary let out that signature bark of a laugh and slapped my back, a little harder than necessary. Still crammed in that shoebox apartment, he boomed, loud enough that a couple tables overturned their heads. Cozy though, right? Rats tuck you in at night. I forced a laugh. Not so bad. Rent's cheap, I'm downtown. Gary smirked, shook his head. You'd rather throw cash at rent than build equity. Man, your dad should have beat some sense into you. The table laughed. Even my dad managed one of those pained smiles that meant, don't make a scene. I bit my tongue, took a seat near the end of the table. Across from me, Tyler and Vanessa, who didn't look up from her phone until the appetizers hit. I sipped water, let the conversation wash over me. Megan going on about private school tuition, Gary bragging about some new property deal, Tyler scrolling through engagement shoot photos from Bali. Then, somewhere between the appetizers and the main course, it happened. Vanessa leaned in a little, eyes narrowing. Wait. Pointing. Is that a Patek? I blinked. Yeah. Surprised you know it. She laughed softly. Did a sponsorship with a luxury watch brand last year. Learned a beat. That's not a base model, I shrugged. Suddenly aware every eye at the table was on me. She tilted her head, phone rising under the table, and I could practically feel her thumbs typing. A second later, her smile dropped like someone flipped a switch. She looked up at me and at Tyler and at everyone else. That watch costs more than our honeymoon. Not bothering to keep her by a lot. The table went silent. Uncle Gary froze mid-chew. Megan's wine glass stopped halfway to her lips. My dad shifted in his seat. Nobody spoke. And just like that, in a single moment, the whole dynamic shifted. Not because of some fancy watch on my wrist. Because for the first time, they realized something had changed. I wasn't just the broke computer guy anymore. I didn't gloat, didn't smirk, just sat back and watched the silence spread like wildfire. That was only the beginning. The quiet didn't last. Uncle Gary wasn't the type to let anyone have the last word. Especially not someone he'd spent a decade mocking. He leaned back, tried to laugh it off, though his voice came out a little too sharp. Well, look at you, he said, gesturing at my wrist like it was some kind of offense. Didn't know nerd work paid in gold these days. Must have been a gift, or maybe a knockoff. I smiled politely. Nope, bought it myself. Vanessa still hadn't looked up from her phone. Thumb scrolling slow, like she was confirming something. Tyler leaned over, whispered in her ear. She barely reacted. Just the faintest shake of her head. and another glance at me, this one calculating. I could already see it. The story in her head was rewriting itself, and she wasn't sure yet if she liked the new version. Dinner resumed, sort of. The mood had shifted, subtle, but there. Megan launched into a new topic, vacation, loudly mentioning the little Aspen getaway her husband had just bought them. Sweet tone, sharp edge, and classic Megan always had a sixth sense for when someone else was hogging the spotlight. My mum didn't say much, but I caught her glancing. I hadn't told her about the watch, the deal, any of. She probably still pictured me struggling, calling once a month for recipes or news about relatives. I didn't hold it against. She just didn't know how to square what she was seeing with the picture in her head. Gary wasn't done. Of course he wasn't. When dessert came, he tapped his fork against his glass, raised his voice to the table. You know, he said, smirking, we should celebrate. Fancy watch. Guess the ramen startup finally paid off. A few chuckles. My dad's smile went stiff. Mine stayed flat. I said nothing. I could feel it coming. He wasn't just teasing any. He was threatened. And guys like Gary, when they feel threatened, they attack. I mean, who'd have guessed, he went on. After all those years freeloading in that shoebox apartment, you'd come out with something worth more than your car. You still drive that beater, by the way. Sold it, I said, reaching for my coffee. Didn't need it anymore. That got a few raised eyebrows. Tyler asked, wait, no car? How do you get around? I paused, shrugged. Driver. Vanessa nearly choked on her sparkling water. Wait, you have a driver? First genuine reaction from the whole table. Everyone sat up. Not full time, I added. Just meetings. Or when I fly out for work, which is a lot lately. Megan's voice went up a notch. Since when do you fly out for work? Before I could answer, Gary laughed again. Different this time. Bitter. Oh, come on. Jet setting across the country now. What is it you even do? Selling apps? NFTs? Something like that? Tyler's eyes narrowed slightly. He knew I worked in. Clearly never asked past that. Vanessa, meanwhile, was practically glowing. Not looking at me, eyes back on her phone. Fingers moving fast. Then she stopped. Jaw slack for a second. She looked up at Tyler. Babe, said softly. Did you know your cousin's company just raised a Series B? 8 figures. It's in Forbes. That did it. The silence that followed wasn't all. It was dead. You could have heard a fork drop. Everyone stared at me like I'd grown a second. Gary's face went a shade darker. My mom looked genuinely stunned. Megan scoffed under her breath. Her husband muttered something I didn't catch. Even my dad blinked, like he was seeing me for the first time in years. But Vanessa wasn't finished. She flipped her phone toward Taylor, screen facing him. He's the founder. A beat. CEO. That broke the spell. Megan leaned back, arms crossed. That's probably just one of those online lists, she said quickly. They'll publish anyone these days. Half that stuff's made up for clicks. Gary straightened in his seat, jaw clenched. Even if it's true, he muttered, doesn't mean anything. Play dress up all you want. You're still the same kid who couldn't afford a Thanksgiving ticket 3 years ago. I didn't say anything. Just let the silence stretch again, because underneath it I could feel it. They weren't confused anymore. They were angry. Not because I lied. Not because I bragged. Because I hadn't needed them. Hadn't asked for help. Hadn't played their game or followed their map. And somehow made it anyway. For people like Gary, that kind of independence is an insult. The rest of dinner passed in a strange haze. Conversations turned brittle. Laughter forced. My mom tried to act normal. Asked how work was going, but her tone was strained, like she was piecing together a puzzle that didn't add up. My dad just sipped his wine. Quiet. Megan started in on how influencers fake their net worth online, how people should be careful who they idolize. Her husband nodded along like a parrot. Vanessa kept stealing glances at me, smiling at things I said even when I wasn't talking. Tyler noted Gary. After dessert, people started leaving. Some stiff hugs, some just a nod. Megan didn't even look at me. My mom gave a half-hearted smile, clearly still processing the night. And then there was Gary. Pulling on his coat, he stepped beside me, leaned in. Don't let it go to your head, kid, he said quietly. Money doesn't make you part of this family. I turned to face him. Didn't know I needed an invitation. His jaw twitched. He said nothing else. Outside, the air was cold, my breath fogging in front of me. I should have felt smug, triumphant. Instead, I just felt tired, because I knew that dinner wasn't the end of anything. It was the start. The real tension was still coming. It wasn't even a week later when the betrayal hit. Tuesday morning, a call from my bank's fraud department. I was mid-negotiation on a partnership contract with a logistics software company. A big deal, months in. The call came through. Normally, I'd have let it go to voicemail. Something told me to pick up. The woman on the line sounded professional, serious. Mr. Cross, we've flagged a series of attempted access requests on your business account. Multiple failed logins, then a successful one from a device in the Midwest. We've temporarily frozen access until we can verify it wasn't you. My stomach dropped. No, it wasn't. I'm in New York. Who is it? She couldn't give me a name without a formal investigation, but told me whoever it was had guessed my recovery email security question. They'd even tried redirecting my email, likely to intercept 2-factor codes. The only people who knew that information, the old college nickname, the street I grew up on, my childhood dog's name, were family. I hung up, sat in silence a while, coffee going cold. Didn't take long to confirm what I already suspected. That night, I opened an old shared folder on my personal Google Drive, one I hadn't touched in years, used back when I was the free tech support for the whole family tree. A few harmless PDFs, old resumes, some photos, and one file that stopped me cold. A spreadsheet, my old company's early cap table, and a pitch deck, a version I deleted from my local files ages ago, apparently uploaded here once by accident. Never thought twice about it at the time. Someone had been poking around. Next day, a LinkedIn message from a guy I barely remembered, an angel investor I'd spoken to once, a year back. He sent a link to a new pitch deck that had hit his inbox, asked if it was some new arm of my company. I clicked it, stomach twisted. Tyler. Tyler had sent out a near-identical version of my original deck, barely altered, under a new startup name. His name listed as founder and CEO. The product description, word for word what I'd built. The pain point, the solution, the branding language, even the font match. He'd stolen it. I didn't know where to start. Part of me was stunned. Part of me wasn't surprised at all. I thought back to that dinner, Vanessa scrolling, whispering to him, the tension in his eyes when she showed him the Forbes article. It made sense now. He wasn't just jealous. He was plotting. And he hadn't just copied a pitch. He'd submitted it to the same accelerator program I'd gone through 2 years ago. I called a friend who worked on the review board, quietly, carefully. And sure enough, Diller had already made it past the first round, under a different company, but with a carbon copy product. His submission included proprietary back-end architecture, the exact system I'd built and protected with code obfuscation, the kind only someone with access to my local Git backups could reverse. I paced my apartment in circles, mind racing. How had he gotten into my files? Then I remembered the dinner, that weird moment when Vanessa asked about the watch, scanned it, the lingering glances, the sudden curiosity. I'd left my phone on the table, went to the restroom. Never thought twice about it, but I'd been careless. One password, one saved browser session, one forgotten link on my drive. That's all Tyler needed. He didn't just want to copy me, he wanted to be me. That realization stung more than I expected. I sat down, opened my laptop, logged into my legal team's internal portal. I didn't want to go straight to war, but if I didn't act now, this could spiral into something I couldn't contain. Before I hit send, I hesitated. Underneath the rage, something else. Betrayal. Tyler was my cousin. Family. The guy I used to play Nintendo with in Grandma's basement. We weren't close, but we shared blood. Shared birthdays, holidays, stories. I never imagined he'd stab me in the back not to steal what I'd built, not to pretend he'd earned it. I remembered when I first started the company, everyone laughing behind my back, him included. He used to call it Adam's Nerd Fantasy League. I brushed it off. Let it roll. Figured one day they'd see. And now he'd seen. And instead of being proud, he tried to take it. I couldn't tell anyone in the family, not yet. I knew exactly how it would go. They'd say I was overreacting, that Tyler probably didn't mean anything by it, that I should just talk to him, resolve it like family. But I wasn't letting this slide. Not this time. Staring at the cease and desist template on my screen, I knew this wasn't just about a stolen pitch. This was war, and Tyler had just fired the first shot. I didn't send it that night. Hovered over the button for what felt like hours, finger twitching, eyes locked on the screen. Something held me back, exhaustion maybe, denial, or maybe some part of me still wanted to believe it wasn't real, that Tyler had panicked, gotten carried away, that I could confront him and he'd apologize, that there'd be a way to make it right. Instead, I closed the laptop, sat there in the dark. I didn't sleep that night. Lay on the couch, staring at the ceiling, every creak in the old apartment sounding like it was shouting at me. Every time I closed my eyes, his name in my inbox, Vanessa's smug smile across the table, Gary leaning in to tell me I'd never be one of them. By morning I needed space, from all of it. The noise, the stress, the disappointment. I turned off my phone, forwarded calls to voicemail, packed a small bag, left without telling anyone. Not my friends, not my assistant, not even my parents. Took the first train out of the city, headed upstate to a small rental cabin I'd found months back, and never had time to visit. Nothing fancy, a weathered place with a wood-burning stove, slow Wi-Fi, a lake out back that looked like I hadn't seen a swimmer in decades. But it was quiet. I needed quiet. First 2 days, I didn't open barely to my phone. Just sat on the old dock in a hoodie and watching ducks drift by, letting the silence stretch. Air smelled like pine and wet dirt. For once, nobody was asking me to solve a problem, pitch an idea, explain what I did for a living. But inside, I felt hollow. Tyler hadn't just stolen my pitch. He'd taken something I couldn't put into words, the validation. Years of work distilled into one thing. The I told you so, I never said out loud, but always dreamed of. He'd turned it into a joke, a shortcut, and the worst part, he might get away with it. I started spiraling. Imagined headlines. Rising tech star caught in IP dispute with family member. The press wouldn't care who was right. They'd run it for clicks. Investors would panic. My company, my team, they'd be the ones who suffered. People who trusted me. People who'd left stable jobs to build something with me. Their futures tied to mine, and mine tied to Tyler's theft. One morning I woke up to a voicemail from my dad. Hadn't spoken to him since the dinner. His voice was calm, clipped. "Hey Ethan, just checking in. Your mom said you've been quiet. Look, I heard something weird from Gary today about Tyler starting a company. He said you two were working together now. Guess that's cool if it's true, but you should have told us. Anyway, call me." Call, my throat clenched. Working together. Gary was already rewriting the story. I was livid, didn't call back. Opened my laptop instead, started digging. Found Tyler's new company website. Live 2 days ago. The logo eerily close to the one my designer had mocked up for my original launch. The copy, barely rewritten. There was even a founder's letter, lifted almost word for word from one of my old Medium drafts, except he'd swapped out every mention of my name, my story, my struggle, replaced with vague anecdotes about personal loss and a passion for innovation. He'd even included a photo of himself in front of a whiteboard, my whiteboard, from a brainstorming session I'd hosted in my apartment last summer. He must have snapped it that weekend. He crashed on my couch when his heat went out. I let him stay, thought it was just family helping family. I felt sick. He hadn't just copied my work. He'd collected it, stored it, saved it like a scavenger, waiting for the moment to be right. And now he was parading around as the visionary I'd fought to become. That was the breaking point. For the next 2 days, I didn't leave the cabin. Stayed up late piecing everything together. Every pitch deck version, every old email, every line of code, tracked file access logs, screenshot timestamps, metadata, anything that could prove what was mine. Built a folder labeled War Chest, filled it with evidence, still didn't. Something in me had shifted. I wasn't angry anymore, was done. Done trying to prove my worth saw me. Done showing up to family dinners to justify my own existence. Done staying quiet to keep. Maybe I didn't want not yet. What I wanted was clarity. What I needed was distance. When I finally came back to the city, I told no one. Slipped into my apartment like a ghost. Sat on the floor watching sunrise creep through the blinds. Inbox overflowing. Investors, journalists, even a few distant cousins who'd suddenly heard about the business and wanted to reconnect. And buried under it all, an email from Tyler. No subject. One line. "Let's talk before this gets messy." That was the moment I knew. He wasn't just hoping I'd ignore it. He expected me to, and because that's what I'd always done. But this time he'd picked the wrong version of me. I wasn't walking away anymore. By the time I read that email, I was a different person than the one who'd slouched into that family dinner weeks earlier, unsure if even belonged at the table. The silence, the retreat, the betrayal, they'd worked like a kiln, hardening me into something sharper, colder, but focused, clear. I didn't reply to Tyler, not yet. Instead, I spent the next 2 weeks doing what I'd always done best, building. Except this time, I wasn't just building product, I was building leverage. Hired a new legal team, a brutal firm known for IP warfare. Not the guys you go to for contracts and compliance, the kind who drink coffee out of "I sued Google" mugs and smile through depositions like it's date night. Gave them everything. Emails, version history, screenshots of our shared family folder, time-stamped commits, even that photo of Tyler in front of my whiteboard. The lead attorney, Sophia, went through it all and said, "We've got him cold." At the same time, I called a friend, Nathan, who ran a boutique PR agents for high-profile tech founders. Not cheap, discreet. We built a plan, a story ready to circulate through the right channels, land in the right inboxes, hit the desks of the exact people Tyler was trying to impress. The headline, "Unknown cousin tries to clone tech CEO's startup, gets exposed." Not published yet, but ready, and I wasn't done. My company, kept lean and private until now, was finally ready to scale. We'd been holding back on growth because I didn't want to lose control. Now, I had a reason to go big. I closed a new Series C with a venture group built for aggressive expansion. Within 2 months, we opened 2 satellite offices, tripled the engineering team, launched in 3 major cities. Revenue spiked, press picked us up. Tech influencers started name-dropping us on podcasts and in newsletters. I got invited to speak at a major innovation summit in LA, a stage Tyler would never be qualified to attend, let alone headline. Suddenly I wasn't that guy with the apartment in. I was Ethan Walsh, founder of COA, a rising name in AI logistics and predictive data. People noticed, including family. Megan was first, a message dripping in fake warmth. "Hey stranger, just wanted to say how proud we are of you. Next time you are in town, let's do brunch." I didn't respond. My mom left a voicemail saying she'd always believed in me. Rich, considering she used to call twice a month asking if I'd given up on that app thing yet. Even my dad reached out. Awkward, hesitant. asked if I needed help managing all the new attention, said he had contact. I smiled hearing that. He meant Gary, as if I'd ever take advice from the man who laughed at me for living in a box with a router. Gary, to his credit, stayed silent, but I could feel his presence, a shadow at the edge of the firelight watching, waiting. I had my team quietly pull a business intelligence report on Tyler's fake startup. No traction. First wave of investor interest fizzled. Brand went quiet. No updates, no hires, nothing. He tried relaunching under a new. But the problem with copying someone else's vision, you don't understand the why behind, just the what. And with my legal team watching now, he couldn't move without risking a lawsuit. I held the power. Didn't have to flaunt it. That was the best part. Backstage at the LA summit one day, adjusting my mic pack, I got a message from Vanessa. 3 words. You were right. No explanation, no follow-up. I knew exactly what it meant. Tyler had imploded. Maybe the pressure got to him. Maybe he spun some lies she saw straight through. Maybe she Googled my name again and found what he'd been trying to bury. Didn't matter. I left her on red. After my keynote, 30 minutes on ethical AI and efficient system, standing ovation. A few VC partners came up after, asking for meeting. I smiled, shook hands, took notes. Stepping into the black car my driver had waiting, it hit me. I hadn't thought about the apartment in weeks. Hadn't thought about the cramped kitchen where I used to burn toast while debugging code, or the paper-thin walls that let me hear every conversation my upstairs neighbor had with his cat. But that place had made me, just like the ridicule had sharpened me, just like the betrayal had made me colder, and now I was ready. Tyler had taken his swing. I let him think I'd stepped back. I wasn't retreating. I was aiming, and he had no idea what was coming. The summit marked more than a milestone for the company. It marked a shift in how I moved through the world. No longer playing defense, no longer reacting, calculating. For the first time, I had reach. That's the thing about success. When you're at the bottom, nobody returns your emails. When your name starts showing up in Wired or TechCrunch, the gatekeepers suddenly remember it. Doors that used to slam shut before you even knocked swing open, all smiles. And that's when the real setup began. It started with a meeting, invitation to a private investor dinner in San Francisco. Small, high stakes, invite only, a quiet affair hosted by a group that rescued struggling startups with potential. Called themselves an accelerator. Really more like a Shark Tank with linen napkins. At the far end of the table, sipping Pinot like he'd always belonged there, sat Nathan Pierce, managing partner at Halbert Capital. I hadn't known much about him until one of my analysts flagged him weeks earlier during our internal review of Tyler's investor trail. Nathan had been CC'd on one of Tyler's early outreach email, the same pitch that ripped off my product. Back then, Tyler didn't know any better, figured he could sell it and hoped nobody looked too closely. Sitting across from Nathan now, I knew he was smarter than that. Whatever happened to that logistics AI deck you got a few months back? I asked, casual. The one from, what was it? Spara Tech? Nathan blinked, slow. Deliberate. You know about that? Let's just say I'm familiar with the source material. He studied me a beat, then smirked. Didn't go anywhere. Felt thin, like someone stole a blueprint without reading the manual. We both knew exactly what. I didn't push. Didn't need to. I could already see the setup forming. These weren't people who liked copycat, didn't fund pretenders, but they did enjoy watching a well-executed takedown, especially one that protected their own reputation. Nathan leaned in. You looking to expand? Maybe, if the timing's right. What if we helped? I paused, feigning thought. Depends what you want in return. He grinned. Just a seat at the table, maybe a story to follow. Back in my hotel suite that night, I opened a secure call with Sophia, my lawyer. I think it's time. She didn't ask she'd been waiting. We launched a silent probe. Nothing official, just enough to trace where Tyler's fake startup incorporated accounts were tied to the filing, and where the money had gone. That's when I learned something in my stomach. He'd taken out a personal loan, backed by a family co-sign, my dad. Tyler had gone to him weeks after that dinner, spun some story. I'd invited him to collaborate, was letting him lead a new division, called it a family-first project, didn't want to burden me, I was too busy running the main company. And my dad, desperate as always to be part of something meaningful, believed him, co-signed a loan for $300,000. Gary's name was on the paperwork, a little family investment triangle, all under the illusion they were finally cashing in on each success. Tyler had promised equity, promised they'd be paid back fivefold. He was gone, spent on branding consultants, paid shout-out, a rented WeWork office he barely used, and, of course, Vanessa's wellness brand, launched alongside his startup as a synergy project. All smoke, and the fire was about to start. Sophia and I sat down with the internal compliance officer at one of the largest startup expos in the country, the same one where Tyler had submitted Sparatech to present. She pulled up the registration, frowned. He forged this, she said. pointing at the listed patent references. These don't even exist. That was enough to trigger a quiet disqualification. No scene, just his name, quietly removed from the speaker list. No call, no warning. That was only the beginning. Nathan wasn't just curious anymore. He was interested. Brought me into his circle. Founders, analysts, strategic advisors who specialized in consolidation, making small, poorly managed companies built on stolen ideas and legally dismantling before they could do real market. I was holding Exhibit A, but I wasn't ready to press the button yet. One last piece fell into place. An anonymous email from Vanessa. No subject, no greeting. You deserve to know. He used your login credentials to access your drive folder. I watched him do it to the dinner. He said you'd never know. I'm sorry. A screenshot attached. Tyler's laptop opened to my drive folder, metadata bar clearly visible. That was it. The final nail. I sat back, staring at the screen. Motive, proof, allies, and now, permission. Revenge wasn't an act anymore. It was an operation. Every move from here would be deliberate, legal, devastating. Tyler thought I'd gone quiet. The silence was just me loading the first volley. I waited for the annual cross-family summer gathering to make the first move. Tradition? Every July, the extended family piled into my parents' lake house for a long weekend of sunburns, barbecue, and passive-aggressive judgment. I hadn't gone the past 2 years. Too busy, too tired, too unwilling to play the struggling tech guy in cargo shorts role, while Tyler popped champagne like a third-rate influencer. This year, I RSVP'd, brought guests, not just anyone, my new VP of Operations, Marcus, and our lead counsel, Sophia. Both sharp, composed, perfectly capable of handling the business end. But more importantly, they looked the part. Marcus pulled up in a sleek electric SUV, stepped out in sunglasses with an air of quiet authority. Sophia wore a crisp linen blazer, gold watch flashing as she shook hands. I didn't need to say who they were. People just assumed. Megan did a double take. You came? Of course, I said, smiling. Family? The lake house hadn't changed. Same creaky deck chairs, same ugly boat Dad refused to get rid of. But the energy had. The moment I walked in, people moved differently. More cautious, more curious. Whispers started almost immediately. Uncle Gary greeted me with a stiff nod, a half-hearted chuckle. Heard you've been busy, City. I smiled. Yeah. Had a little project I was working. He said nothing else. Then Tyler appeared, wearing a golf polo 3 sizes too tight. Fake smile stretched across his face. Vanessa was nowhere in sight. Adam, he said, trying for casual. Long time, man. I shook his hand firmly. Been a minute. How's the startup? He faltered. Good, good. You know, early stages, still building the foundation. I nodded. Funny. I've been hearing otherwise. Before he could ask what I meant, Sophia stepped forward. Mr. Cross, she said, handing me a slim folder. Here are the documents you requested. All the filings are complete. The letters have been sent. Thanks, I said, flipping it open just enough for Tyler to catch the logo at the top. SOS, Legal Counsel. He blanched. I could see him piecing it together. The name, the timing, the woman. I gave him a look so neutral it was almost cruel. Might be a good time to get your paperwork in. He opened his mouth. Nothing. That night, after the barbecue and the awkward mingling, I called a meeting on the deck. Everyone was there. Mum, Dad, Gary, Megan, a few cousins. Tyler sat off to the side, arms crossed. I wanted to clear something up, I began, standing by the railing. There's been some confusion lately about what I do, who I work with, and who's allowed to claim involvement in my company. Megan scoffed. Oh, come on. What is this, a TED Talk? I ignored her. Sophia handed out copies of the cease and desist letter, 8 pages, neatly stapled, each with a cover note addressed to Tyler Walsh. Gary flipped through his, panic rising. What is this? A legal notice, Sophia said calmly, documenting multiple instances of IP theft, misrepresentation, and fraudulent investor outreach. You'll find the relevant exhibits attached. My dad looked stunned. Wait, Tyler, you took his... Tyler jumped. It wasn't like that. I didn't steal anything. I just borrowed the format. It's a template. Everyone uses template. I stepped forward. You used my words, my code, my diagrams. You even faked a founder letter with my life story in it. You accessed my files through my own Drive account. That's not a template. That's theft. Gary stood now, red-faced. So what? You're going to sue your own cousin? Make this into some kind of public spectacle? Sophia answered before I could. That's up to Tyler. He can settle, surrender all rights to his company, issue a public retraction, repay the outstanding loan. Or we proceed with litigation, and we will win. But I co-signed that loan, my dad said quietly. I'm on the hook. I turned to him slowly. Yes, you are. The silence that followed was heavy, wrapped around the deck like fog. Gary exploded. You little snake, you planned this. I met his glare. No, Tyler planned this. I just responded. Tyler tried again. Adam, come on. We're family. I made a mistake. Okay. I panicked. I didn't think you'd actually... What? I asked. Hold you accountable. Why not? You counted on the fact that I wouldn't, that I'd keep my head down like I always did, that I'd stay quiet, that I'd let you take credit for what I built. He went quiet. Vanessa wasn't there to defend him, and nobody else stepped in. That was the beauty of it. I didn't yell, didn't threaten. I just showed them who I'd become. That weekend ended with Sophia hand-delivering a signed agreement. Tyler folded within 48 hours. His company was officially dissolved, domain taken down, social media wiped, a retraction letter published on LinkedIn where he admitted to missteps and misunderstanding while gracefully stepping aside from his role in the industry. Looked noble on paper. Everyone knew what had actually happened. Back in the city, Nathan congratulated me on the execution, called it one of the cleanest takedowns he'd seen in years. As for Gary, he called 3 weeks later, voice shaky, asking if I'd help clean up the fallout. A few of his investor friends had found out about the fake startup and weren't happy. I didn't return the call. I wasn't done yet. The fallout didn't happen all at once. It unfolded slowly, like a house rotting the inside out. Quiet first, then unmistakable. 3 weeks after the cease and desist landed and Tyler's fake startup was publicly shut down, word quietly spread through the business circles that mattered. He tried to pivot, of course, deleted his LinkedIn for a few days, brought it back with a sanitized bio and a new title, independent consultant. Vague descriptors like tech innovator and strategic thinker didn't stick. Word had gotten around. The investors he'd pitched started distancing themselves. A few posted generic warnings on Twitter about copycats in the space, due diligence red flags. Nobody named him directly. Didn't have people in tech talk. Once you're labeled a fraud, there's no unlabeling it. Vanessa was gone. Moved out, took her dog, scrubbed her socials of every trace of the engagement. Never heard from her again, but someone forwarded me an Instagram post she made a month later. Just a photo of a lake and a caption, "Lesson learned. Never build your life on someone else's blueprint." Gary's construction company took a hit too. One of the investors Tyler had courted turned out to be a personal friend of Gary's, someone weighing a joint venture between Tyler's startup and Gary's firm. When the truth came out, the investor pulled out of both. One decision, and the dominoes started falling. Within 6 months, Gary had to sell off a key property at a loss. One of his longest-standing subcontractors dropped him. At Thanksgiving, the family gathering was quieter than usual. I showed up late, just long enough to say hello to my mom and dad, then stepped outside to sit on the porch. Megan didn't speak to me. Gary avoided eye contact entirely. Tyler wasn't there. I asked where he was. My dad cleared his throat. Out of town, visiting Vanessa's parents. No wedding on the horizon, no save the dates, just silence. Eventually, my dad came outside, sat beside me. For a long while, neither of us spoke, just watched the wind stir the brittle November leaves on the lawn. Then he said quietly, "I didn't know. About the loan, about what he did." I nodded. "I know. I should have asked you. I should have believed in you." Not quite an apology. Close enough. I stood, gave his shoulder a pat. "You did what you thought was right. So did I." Back in the city that night, I opened my laptop, checked the calendar, made a note. Next quarter, the company was slated to expand into 5 new markets. Valuation had tripled since summer. We'd just been approved for a partnership with a major tech conglomerate I wasn't legally allowed to name yet. The old apartment, gone. Donated most of the furniture, handed the keys to a friend's younger brother trying to start his own company, told him to build something that scared people, something so bold they'd laugh in it. I knew exactly what that felt like, and I knew how sweet it was when they finally stopped laughing. Tyler never reached out again, not to apologize, not to explain, not even to fight back. In the end, he didn't just lose the startup, he lost everything he'd pretended to be. And me, I didn't just win, I earned it. The same hands that used to point and laugh now trembled to shake mine.